Good morning and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our meeting this morning for Robeson County Vision Zero. This is our first meeting of 2021, and we'll continue to meet virtually until the pandemic is over, or at least we feel like we can do it safe. And it's important that we stay in touch with what we're doing, because as you'll see later, 2020 was not a good year for a lot of things, but certainly wasn't a good year for our Vision Zero campaign. We have a lot going on to improve safety, and we need everyone's help and moving forward. Just want to cover a few housekeeping matters before we move forward. If you're not speaking, please mute your mic. Also, if you're not speaking, shut your camera down. I've been having some problems with mine, so mine's down already, and I'll keep mine down because yesterday I was losing some connection when I was trying to use my camera and Zoom. So, do that after each presenter. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions, and like all of our meetings, this one's been recorded, and all videos can be found on our NC Vision Zero website. This is our this is 2020, and if you'll see that we had 53 fatalities, traffic deaths in Robeson County in 2020, which is the same number, ironically, that we had the year before we started our Vision Zero campaign. So really 2020 in a lot of ways takes us back to where we were when we started. Although we had decreases for 2018 and 2019, 2020 was just not good. But it was not only in Robeson County. This trend was across North Carolina and across the United States during the pandemic. As we always say, one death's just way too many, but this trend is very disturbing. We just need to continue to work hard and stay vigilant at what we're doing, because each life matters, and we've got to do all we can to save lives. Our first speaker this morning is going to be Brian Mayhew, and he will go into more detail about the crash data. One of the things we're doing that we're using in our toolkit is engineering to keep the roads safe. There's a list here of always stops that's slated to be completed during 2021. If you'll notice, the first one is already completed, at the intersection of North NC 41 and 904. 904 is a pretty busy stretch that crosses 41, and that's a lot of beach traffic use that road and go through that intersection. So I think in the long run, this is going to be really good. DOT has studied the data at these 7 intersections and determined that they all warrant always stops. They'll all be converted, like I said, this year at a combined cost of around $300,000. This is really a quick way and a fairly inexpensive way when you compare it to roundabouts to improve the safety at intersections and something that makes a real difference. And if we look at our trends at our other always stops, we can expect fatal and other serious crashes to drop by more than 60 to 70% after we make these changes. Last fall, we launched a public outreach plan with assistance from the communications office at DOT. The crux of the plan was a new social media toolkit. We reached out to different organizations to use the toolkit so they could reach their audiences online. Here's some examples of folks that did use the toolkit. And I want to thank the county, Robeson County, the Sheriff's Department, UNCP, the Health Department here in the county for all taking part in our social media campaign. We got some real good participation from these agencies, and this helped across our community. They shared the graphics and messages on their social media accounts, and again, we're thankful for their assistance with this. We're working to update the social media messages, and we hope to roll out that next month at our before our next meeting, actually, and put that on the landing page for Vision Zero that you see on this slide. We will begin to encourage other organizations and associations to use these messages and graphics to help spread our word in the community. It's going to take all of our efforts and working together to save more lives. Our next speaker is Brian Mayhew, and Brian's with DOT. Brian, it's all yours.
Thanks, Grady. I appreciate it. Good to be here with this group again today. I wish I had some better news to share with the group on fatalities across the state, but as Grady mentioned, 2020 was a tough year. I'm going to share some information from the state perspective so that you guys have that information. And then I'll also touch on some more specific data for Robeson County. So the main thing on this graph is on the far right, you'll see 1,641. That's the number of people that died in 2020 on North Carolina roadways, and that number is still preliminary. It may go up again. So it was a bad year. It's the highest number of fatalities since 2007. But when you go back even further, it's one of the highest number of fatalities in a year since the early 1970s. So certainly not the direction that we would like it to be going. Some early indications are that with 2020, certainly different travel patterns related to COVID may have played a role. There's going to be a lot of additional research to take place over this coming year and probably for years to come to try to dig into that. But some early indications are certainly travel speeds because of less traffic, and also fatalities related to not wearing seatbelts seem to spike as well in 2020. And there's other factors as well. So you can see that this is comparing 2020 data to 2019 in several different categories of related to safety and traffic fatalities. Lane departure crashes were up significantly in 2020. This typically are single vehicle crashes that occur on two-lane rural roads. Certainly a lot of those do occur in Robeson County as well. Again, you can see the occupant protection. That's basically belt use primarily. That also increased in 2020 compared to 2019. Speed increased Many other categories were relatively flat. One thing of note, younger drivers also increased while older drivers decreased. Older drivers was one of the few areas to show a decrease. That may be because of COVID travel patterns as well. Percent change from the previous year. So this is to give you an idea that 2020 was indeed unusual. 11% change increase over 2019. And that's hard to do when you look back since 2012 through 2020. Most of the percent change from one year to the next is, 4% or less, with just a couple exceptions. So 2020 had an 11% increase over 2019, and that's again not common to see that big of a jump in fatalities. Looking at 2011 as a baseline year, since 2020 kind of allows us to look at a decade of data as a whole across the state. Unfortunately, 2020 is 34% higher than where we were in 2011, and that's probably one of the most alarming stats that I've seen. That shows us that our trend statewide is clearly not heading in the direction that we would like it to. There's a lot of effort taking place to reverse that. There's a lot of effort taking place to drive these numbers down, but the trend in 2020 is certainly not the one that we'd like to see. A little bit specific now with Robeson County. This is showing fatalities, but also serious injuries. Serious injuries are significant events. They often leave somebody having health issues for years or even for the rest of their lives. So we often look at fatalities and serious injuries to get a more complete picture of what may be going on. Grady already shared the numbers with you for the fatalities in Robeson County of 53 in 2020, which is, as was pointed out, the same number where we were in 2017 with some improvement in 2018 and 2019. Serious injuries were down in 2020 compared to 2019, a little bit higher than previous years, but we did not see the same spike in serious injury crashes that we did in fatal crashes across the state. And luckily in Robeson County, it did not spike either. Reported crashes is something that we don't talk about too often when it comes to Vision Zero, because we're very focused on our fatal crashes and serious injuries. But reported crashes was something that we did look at. And of note, total crashes came down in 2020 from 2019, even though the fatal crashes went up. That's not too unusual. Looking at statistics from across the state, the activities involved in a crash versus the human activities involved in a fatal crash can often be different. Those decisions and choices can be very different, from such as a minor rear-end crash versus maybe a high-speed fatal crash. So it's not too unusual for those numbers to trend sometimes in different directions, but still, it's a lot of crashes. 62% of crashes, total crashes, occur in rural parts of Robeson County, but 85% of the fatalities and serious injuries occur in rural parts of Robeson County. And so that's an overrepresentation, and that is an indication that most of our traffic deaths and serious injuries are occurring outside of the cities. Not all, but many or most are occurring in the rural areas. That's something that we do need to keep in mind, especially as we continue to focus on speed and alcohol and belt use across the county. So this is showing the percentage share of fatal crashes. So if you look on the left, you can see where in 2019, about 55% of the fatal crashes involved not wearing a seat belt, and it stayed largely the same in 2020, 56%, not much change. But that's a big number. Over half of your fatalities involve somebody choosing not to wear a seatbelt. Alcohol, unfortunately, trended up in 2020. You can see about 23% of the fatal crashes involved use of alcohol. That's up from 2019. It's not the direction that we would like to see. little bit better news here. The percent speeding for fatal crashes was down fairly significantly from 2019, and the distracted driving was also down. Distracted driving data can be hard to tease out of our data sets, but based on the information we have, it did decrease in Robeson County. So that's all the data that I have to share. And Grady, I will turn it back over to you, or if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone have any questions for Brian before we move to our next speakers? There are no questions. Our next speakers, Matt Scott from the District Attorney's Office and Mary Jane Richardson from the District Attorney's Office here in the county. They started a DWI court last year here in the county and had to make a lot of adjustments, I'm sure, on the fly during the pandemic with the courts closed or having a limited schedule. So without further ado, I'll let Matt and Mary Jane take it.
Thank you, Mr. Grady. As Mr. Grady stated, it's been a year now since we've stood up a sobriety court here in the county through the help of the much appreciative help from the Governor's Highway Safety Commission, who awarded us the grant. So we stood this up in January. It was something new to the county, something we've never done before, but it's also a program that has been proven successful, not just in North Carolina, but all across the nation. And with the number of DWIs we have in the county, we felt like it would be much needed here, and we were right. However, as everyone knows, soon after we stood it up in January, COVID-19 hit, and it's changed not just our court system, but our lives, both work and home, personal and professional. So we had to adjust. And in doing so, we had to try and be creative. In our court system, it basically, essentially, for all intents and purposes, didn't shut it down, but limited our ability to do a lot of things, to include jury trials. Since February of last year, we only had 1 week in November where we were able to do jury trials. In Robeson County, we successfully did 2 jury trials, one of the few counties in the state that actually did a jury trial since COVID hit. But that was only 1 week in November, and we've not been able to do it since. So you can imagine a year has gone by, and we've only been able to do 1 jury trial session, 2 jury trials in a year. In our district court, where we see our DWIs, where we see our seatbelt tickets, where we speeding tickets, we've essentially not been able to do anything since February, early part of March of last year. Very, very limited to the number of people we've been able to bring into the courtroom, very limited in the number of things that we could do. We've since opened that back up to a great extent, allowing more people into the courtrooms and allowing us the ability to try and dispose of these types of cases, but also being mindful of everyone's health, not only here in the courthouse, but our health and our people in our public in our county. So with that, challenges is abound, and Mary Jane Richardson is here on the meeting today. Mary Jane is the Assistant District Attorney who's been leading our effort in our sobriety court, leading it during our sessions, leading it through our coordinator, changing coordinator, seeking a new coordinator, and she's been steadfast in her leadership in helping those that are suffering from alcohol addiction and suffering from our DWIs in our court system. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mary Jane to give you a brief rundown of what we do. One, because we've probably got new people on board, a rundown of what we do, but also the successes. And I think this is one place where we've seen success in this COVID environment. And that's something to be praised, not anything that we've done necessarily, but the great effort our participants have been doing in battling the demons of alcohol addiction and coming through on the other end. And it's a testament to their hard work and their dedication to become better. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mary Jane Richardson.
Thanks, Matt. It's an honor to be here and presenting in front of you all. Thanks for having me. I'm just going to go into a brief overview of our program. There's more information on our slides. If you have questions, please let us know at the end. But I'm just going to give a brief overview and then talk about how COVID has really impacted the program so far. Whenever we talk about, we as in our office talks about the DWI court treatment program, we always say we're promoting justice by promoting wellness, because the goal of treatment court is to treat underlying addiction issues that drives behavior. Now, most of the cases we see and the defendants we see in court, there are many that commit criminal behavior because they are hateful or have ill will towards other people, but there is a subset of people, the ones that we're trying to target, who their behavior is being driven by an addiction issue that stems from some kind of trauma, some kind of addiction, and if we can treat that foundation, then we can make ripple effects in their lives and the community's lives. So that's our main goal. I do like to do puns, so you might see some in the slides. I hope you enjoy them. So we started this program in 2020, and to be part of the program, you have to qualify to be in it, and there's you have to be the most eligible defendant. So I'm going to go through a little bit about the qualifications and disqualifications. The main one I want to talk about is how, from our office's perspective, how we find people who are good candidates for the program. And one of the ways we do that is looking through their criminal history. So we take their criminal history and kind of look at how many DWIs they've had, how frequently, and one of the things I looked for is when this kind of behavior started. For instance, we have a participant who's in his late 60s who has been getting DWIs every 3 or 4 years since 1975. And so that kind of shows me that it wasn't just he got a few DWIs here and there, but it's been a habit that's been consistent for a good part of his life. We also look for other things that indicate substance misuse, including open container charges, intoxicated and disruptive, if they start having substance charges at an early age, what age they are now, anything that shows kind of a pattern of behavior linked to substance misuse. Also, the defense attorneys get involved as well. They often know their clients better than we know them, so they can often approach us and say, hey, I want to refer somebody or you guys to consider someone who I know is struggling. We also have them meet with our DWI treatment coordinator to do an assessment, because we're looking for people who are high risk, high need. So they are high risk of reoffending and have a high need of being in a program like this and a high need of getting treatment. Because otherwise we're just wasting our resources on someone who's casually involved in substance misuse versus someone who it's an everyday issue. Disqualifications is the only sports reference I know. When you see a flag, you got to stop. So whenever we see certain things, when we're evaluating candidates, we automatically stop and they're disqualified. This includes violent offenses, sexual assault offenders, anyone involved. Currently, their DWI is a DWI that resulted in serious injury or death. We also are a little bit wary of mental health issues, severe mental health issues. Of course, often drug addiction is a symptom of mental health illnesses. There are certain ones that we, through our resources and treatment providers, certain mental health issues we can actually treat, but there are more serious ones that require a more severe medical attention. But those aren't good candidates for our program, and those are usually ones that require competency evaluations that would have the case go in a different direction anyway. So what are the steps to getting in our treatment court program? Kind of just went over them briefly, but they have to be identified by either our office or referred by a defense attorney. They have to go through the referral process. That includes meeting with our DWI coordinator for their assessment, and to go through the program with them, talk them through what our program requires, what steps it takes to be successful in the program, and really give them a good idea of what it's going to take to be successful and to make changes. And then they're admitted into our program and they give a plea. Please. I have a picture of a plea transcript, which is what we do in Superior Court. Notice the name and the birth date, which is the ratification of the 21st Amendment, a little legal humor for you guys. And part of the plea requires that they plead to the highest level misdemeanor DWI. They are given a 12-month sentence, which is suspended. So it hangs over their head for 36 months, which can actually be extended because our program, although it's supposed to take about 18 months, everyone's progress is not going to be on the same time frame. And so we can extend it if necessary, but that sentence still hangs over their head, kind of making them accountable during this time. They also have to do a 120-day split. So that means that those 120 days means they have to actually spend that time in custody. But for our program, custody can mean different things. It can mean the traditional, you haven't done what you're supposed to do, you need to spend a weekend in jail or a week in jail, or it could mean that you need more intense treatment and we're going to send you to a 90-day inpatient treatment program. So we can kind of use those days to get people the help they need. Often our participants, we try to talk to them before we get them to do an inpatient program, because it's better if they understand why they're going and they're willing to go versus us forcing them to go. You can't force help on people. They have to be willing to accept it and ready to accept it. But their time spent in a program does count towards their split, so we won't be double charging them essentially. So the road to recovery, I'm going to talk a little bit about how our treatment court works. We meet every 2 weeks. We have a staffing session and a court session. So during the staffing session, we have our team members who get together and talk about the participants' progress. So our team members includes myself, so someone from the DA's office. We have a surveillance officer who is one of our sheriff deputies, a probation officer. Treatment providers come in, as well as our coordinator and our judge and a defense attorney. And so for an hour to an hour and a half before our court session, we talk about the progress each participant has made. So each court session, we give the participants a set of goals for the next 2 weeks. So we look and see how well they did with those goals, what kind of adjustments need to be made as to their treatment, and the goal, and then set goals for the next 2 weeks. We also talk about incentives and sanctions, and incentives being treats, gift cards, passes, things that really show that we're proud of them and encourage them and reward them for doing a great job in the past 2 weeks. Sanctions could be anything from community service to letters to court, increased or stricter curfew settings, alcohol monitoring devices, as well as traditional court sanctions, which includes order for arrest if they don't show up to court, or probation violations, because they still are on probation and this is a condition of their probation. So then we set the goals for the next 2 weeks for them, and we also talk about phase progression. Our program has 5 different phases that the participants move through until they graduate, or which I recently learned was not the correct term. It's recovery celebration, because recovery is a full-time, forever status. You're never out of recovery, but graduation kind of signifies an end, but they're not ending. They're just starting their journey of being in recovery. Then here are challenges of pandemic proportions, ones that we've really, the most significant ones that we've had in the past 9 to 10 months are our treatment restrictions. A lot of treatment providers have essentially locked down their facilities. They aren't allowing people to come get treatment or having face-to-face treatment sessions because they're worried about exposure to their employees, as well as patients that may be in inpatient there, or other people are coming for treatment sessions. It's also difficult because a lot of treatment providers have crisis management teams or peer support specialists, who are people who can go out to clients and participants' homes or workplaces whenever there is something that goes wrong, whether it's the person struggling or there's a crisis, family crisis, housing crisis, anything about them not having the necessities for life. They often have crisis management team and peer support people who can go out, assess the situation, figure out what the participant needs, and get them the resources they need. Since they're not doing face-to-face, we don't have that interaction with them, and it's hard to sometimes keeping track of what the participants need and what status they're in. I will say that our team does a really good job of filling in the blanks and stepping in when time is needed, but I'll leave that a little bit more for later. Another challenge is the risk of exposure, lockdowns and quarantines. We've kind of had a stop and go every time for over the past 9-10 months, whether it's court shutting down or participants or team members being quarantined, or someone possibly being exposed, treatment providers being locked down. It's thrown a lot of wrenches our way, and so we keep ducking them, but we're still going strong. There's one of the challenges are health risks to team members. Like I mentioned, our team members really step in and go out to participants' homes, their jobs, make sure they're okay, talk to them whenever they're having or whenever they're struggling. But that always puts our team members at risk of exposure because we're going out to the public with a bunch of people that we don't know, haven't been around. So that's always an issue, but it actually hasn't really stopped anyone. We assess our risk and do the best we can, but we keep moving. Community involvement and awareness. Before the pandemic started, our team was going out to various community groups, agencies, organizations, talking about the program, what it's going to do for our county, as well as telling people what it's about so that way they can maybe tell a neighbor, someone they know that's struggling, because we all are kind of affected by addiction. There's someone we know who is struggling, and so if we get the word out, people can maybe hear about it and start asking about it, and then get more interest in the program, get participants who actually need help. But we haven't really been able to do that since the pandemic started, and there's been no organization meetings other than through Zoom, but those have been few and far between, actually. So our COVID-resistant success. I was actually speaking with one of our treatment providers the other day, asking whether or not being face-to-face is affecting treatment in their opinion, and he actually said no. They are being just as effective, but in a more efficient way in certain instances, because they give all clients an iPad and a hotspot so they can do telehealth visits, so they can do counseling over online, and it saves them time and money because they don't have to worry about transporting people to and from the facility, which is most of our participants, all of our participants really, because they don't have a license, and most of them don't have, I did not do that, most of them don't have transportation unless they rely on a friend or family member, which, you know, they have their own schedules. But with telehealth, you can access people 4 or 5 times a week, which is often required for most of our participants, and they can get in touch with someone just by a telephone call, and so that's very helpful. One of our other COVID-resistant successes is unyielding cooperation. Like I said, our team is amazing. They've gone above and beyond and really understand the importance of this program and how we're affecting people's lives and how people need help, more help than probably usual. And so they go above and beyond. It's a really good team effort, and I'm very proud to be part of it. But also unyielding cooperation from our participants. No matter how many incentives we can give, the best incentive is when we have buy-in from the participants. When someone who's in the program sees the type of changes that occur in their lives when they start getting on the program, when they get a job because finally they're clean, they can pass a drug screen, they got a job, they're working, their family relationships start changing because there's not that hindrance of that addiction there. They really see what the program can do for them, and we've got buy-in. Once you've got buy-in, they'll go do anything they can to make sure that they are becoming better, which is the most important thing, and they're willing to go above and beyond for our treatment process. And we actually have quite a few that have started to see the progress and are doing everything they can to keep it going. And then progress overall, numbers-wise, a large majority of our participants are doing very well. We have those that are struggling, of course, because progress isn't a straight line, but they're doing very well. We have 3 participants who we call them our rock stars, because they're great. They're actually on track to graduate in April. I'm sorry, to have their recovery celebration in April. And we'd actually love Governance Highway Safety to come when we get the graduation scheduled, because it wouldn't be possible without Governance Highway Safety. So I guess the biggest success for us is the fact that we are still having success despite everything that's going on. And that's all I have. I don't know if Matt wants to add anything.
Thanks, Mary Jane, and thanks, Matt. And just Mary Jane alluded to it, but I want to publicly thank the Governor's Highway Safety Program for the grant funding to enable the county to implement this program, because without that funding, it's just not possible. So thanks to Mark Cazell and his folks for funding the program. Any questions for Mary Jane or Matt before we move on to our next speaker? Our next speaker is going to be Crystal Collins. Crystal's the president of the North Carolina Trucking Association, and Crystal's going to talk about sharing the road in Robeson County. So without further ado, Crystal.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. We really appreciate any opportunity that we can talk about truck safety. Oops, looks like I'm on. There we go. Thank you. I'm going to actually turn off my camera so it's not as distracting, and that actually will come up a few minutes in my presentation. I'm going to start out about the industry. North Carolina Trucking Association was established in 1929. Our mission is to advocate, promote, and educate for a safe and sustainable trucking industry. With that said, just some facts about trucking in North Carolina. Most folks don't realize that 1 in 16 jobs in our state is trucking related. The other piece that, and I think a lot of folks found out about this, and the realization how essential trucking is during our pandemic, but 85.6%, 86% North Carolina communities depend exclusively on a truck. So, and we've learned that, and we are very humbled and gratified of the appreciation that we have received from industry and the community and the state. There is one piece though that we are working on as well is with y'all, is the fact that the crash rates is higher in North Carolina than around the US. So what is the trucking industry doing? As far as safety, we're committed to improving safety. Annually, the trucking industries invest at least $10 billion in safety, and these investments include safety technology, safety training, driver safety incentive pay, compliance with safety regulations. But also, we're seeing that intelligent transportation systems are becoming the trucking industry's next generation for safety model for all road users. It's either through vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to infrastructure, and the commercial vehicle safety communications, collectively known as vehicle to everything. Stakeholders are working with the federal government and the state DOTs to advance wireless accident prevention technology. So, I also have a few stats about Robeson County, and I'm going to focus on just trucking, the commercial motor vehicle. We actually have seen a decrease in the number of, I'm going to go over to an acronym and start using it instead of commercial motor vehicle. I'm going to start using CMV. We have seen the crashes decline. 2019, it was 216, and 2020, it was 179. And we also are tracking injuries. Now that actually decreased 57%. 2019 was at 85, and 2020 was at 49. So what I'm showing you here on the screen is a map of where the crashes and the injuries took place. And with the commercial motor vehicle, the CMVs, 80% of it was on I-95, and then as well as the injuries. So some of these crashes involved failed to yield the right of way, or there was not, were unable to reduce speed and time, overcorrecting, and improper lanes change is just a few. So what is NCTA doing about safety? We have a professional truck drivers that go through an interview process. We call them our North Carolina road team captains. So in an effort to promote highway safety and inform the general public about trucking, our road team, they go out and they speak and at different various groups. And what we're going to do right now is show you one of the videos that our professional truck drivers speak on the topic of. Thank you for playing that video, Jamal. This video is available on our website. This is the basis of what our road team captains go out and again speak at various groups. So that information, I'll have this on the last slide if you would like to. Right now we're still in bit COVID, but we're hoping that our drivers will be able to start presenting by this summer. So we talked about blind spots. Let's see if I can get the slide. There we go. You heard Mr. Mallory and Mr. Sadler talk about blind spots. Just 2 or 3 things. I'm not going to read you these bullet points. Just don't linger beside the truck. As you saw sitting from the video, sitting in the cab, you could not see a truck right there at the passenger door. It's always best to pass on the left side. It's a smaller blind spot, but there is still that blind spot. And also stay back. As you saw the camera behind the trailer, it's better for the driver to can see you if you're not tailgating the tractor trailer, because they can't see you in their mirrors. Another following distance, just stay back. You don't know if there's debris on the road that could fly up. You don't know if you can't see over the truck, so you don't know if there's congestion ahead that there's going to require a quick stop. And of course, the truck needs room, a lot of room to stop. The other thing about passing trucks, and Mr. Mallory mentioned it is 80,000 pounds. It does take the length of a football field to bring a tractor trailer to a complete stop. So if you're ever wondering why tractor trailers are leaving a lot of space, especially in congestion, and that's when you see these cars just shoot over in front of them, they're doing that so that it allows them that stop especially with a full load. And the other thing about passing trucks, don't just cut right in front of them. Go up far enough so that when you're ready to move back over in front of them, make sure you see the truck's headlights in your rear view mirror. Distracted driving, it's an issue. It's definitely something that the trucking industry is focused on. There are some hard and fast rules in trucking. The drivers know that their main focus is driving, and they're instructed to communicate when they're at a stop. So this is the end of my slide. If you would like to request a road team captain to speak at your driver's ed, school, church, business events, civic groups, please give us a call. And again, it will probably be summer because I know the drivers are right now pretty restricted. We're waiting for the vaccine and our industry being 100% safe as possible on the road. So with that, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And anytime we can talk trucking, I would love to be there. Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. Anyone have any questions for Crystal? Our next speaker is going to be Neil McNeil, and Neil is going to be talking about our community service outreach with the faith community with our Vision Zero. So without further ado, Neil.
Good morning. My name is Nicholas McNeil, and I'm the pastor of Zion Hill Baptist Church here in Robeson County. And I'm also the vice moderator of the Burnt Swamp Baptist Association. And I've been asked to represent the community of faith in Robeson County. And I appreciate you having me on and allowing me to participate in this meeting. But just a little bit about the Burnt Swamp Baptist Association. We are a family of churches. Let me get that camera. Sorry about that. We are a family of churches affiliated with the North Carolina State Baptist Convention. We've got about 70 member churches with almost 6,500 resident members. Our churches are primarily Native American, but we are growing in our diversity. That is who we are, but we do enjoy fellowship and ministry with many other denominations within our county. I have no idea exactly how many churches there are in Robeson County. I was talking with Miss Cheryl, and she was inquiring about that, but it has been said that there's a church on every corner in Robeson County, and certainly from outsiders, when they come and they're driving around, it was certainly seen that there is one on every corner. But just to give you an idea of how many churches there are in Robeson County, I did a count of churches just within a 5-mile radius of our church here in Renner, and I counted 12 churches. If you include a small Hispanic church that just popped up in the last year or so, there are 12 churches within 5 miles of us. So that tells me that church is important to the people of Robeson County. It lets me know that the people of Robeson County are deeply religious. They are spiritual people. And sometimes it may not seem like that by some of their actions, but yeah, they're deeply spiritual. They're deeply religious. And I've also found that the church is a good place to disseminate community information. And buy-in from area churches would greatly help or increase the success of Vision Zero and get the message out. Well, I've been here at Zion Hill. We're approached all the time by governmental agencies, different folk want us to help disseminate different messages. But I've also found that the buy-in in Robeson County churches starts and ends with the pastors. The churches are not going to buy in unless their pastors buy in. What's important to the pastor is important to the congregations. If we can get the pastors to buy in the Vision Zero, then they will be able to successfully present Vision Zero to their parishioners. And then, so the key to getting, it depends on if you want buy-in or just an announcement. We announce many things in our churches, but if you really want buy-in, that folk are going to really take notice to this Vision Zero and take responsibility for the program. In order for most pastors to be interested and get involved with this Vision Zero, there's got to be some way to tie it into the spiritual aspect of their congregation. That's what we do. We deal with spiritual things. And if the spiritual principles behind Vision Zero were presented in a relevant and meaningful way to our pastors, they would be more likely to actively participate and promote Vision Zero. If it would be presented in a relevant way and make it a spiritual choice, and just help our pastors to understand. We get information all the time from community and government agencies requesting our involvement, but many go unsupported because they do not consider the way in which their program is presented. They'll just send us a flyer, they'll send us an email, they'll give us a short presentation and leave it up to the churches or the pastors to place the importance on it. But the way it's presented to our people here in Robeson County, especially the people of faith, makes a difference. For example, if pastors were reminded of the biblical principle to obey the laws of the land found in Romans chapter 13, and they were encouraged to see that the way in which we drive plays a big part in our Christian testimony to the community around us, I think they would be more likely to actively participate and promote the goals of Vision Zero. The way you get a pastor's attention is you place scripture on it. If there's a scripture principle that can be tied to Vision Zero, and I think there can. I think road rage by Christians is not very Christian-like, and those kinds of things, cutting truckers off or just cutting, just not being distracted driving is not being considerate of your fellow man, and your distraction could harm them. If we could present it in such a way to our pastors, they would be more likely to take that and present it to their parishioners. And what becomes important to the pastor will also become important to the church folk or the community of faith in Robeson County. Vision Zero would also be more readily accepted by area pastors if it's presented by a respected minister from within their fellowship. Burnt Swamp Baptist Association, Preacher Mike Cummins was our DOM for 30 years. Preacher Steve Strickland is our DOM now. If you were going to present to one of the 70 churches or get buy-in from the Burnt Swamp, one of those men would be excellent choices to have them present something maybe at a union. We have what we call church unions every 5th Sunday before this pandemic hit, and we get back to some similitude of being normal, something like that. How you present it, who you get to present it would go a long ways in getting buy-in from our Christian fellowship here in Robeson County. If you were going to use the Assembly of Gods or go to the Assembly of God churches, I think they have 15 churches in Robeson County. Preacher Hedrick Jones is their overseer, and And so I think that is the best way. If you could get some, if you want to really get buy-in. Now the question is, do we really want buy-in or just an announcement? We can announce that and that'll be fine. We'll help out as best we can. But if we really want buy-in, we've got to get our pastors to buy in. And once they buy in and we present it to them with a spiritual aspect, I believe that they'll push it, present it successfully in our churches. And I think that'll be the best way to infiltrate or to get into the community of faith here in Robeson County. So that's just my thoughts on that. How you present and who you have to present will go a long ways in how successful this program would be when it comes to the community of faith in Robeson County. And thank you, Mr. Grady, for the few moments you gave me to kind of chime in on this subject of Vision Zero.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Emily. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak today, and we'll let you start talking about social media and how our task force can work together on that topic.
Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak to you this morning. Robeson County has been through many tragedies with hurricanes and also now with COVID-19. And so we've had to use different platforms than we used in the past, whether it's been the newspaper, commercials, or just being in the news. Whether it be good news or bad news, we had to get another way, a platform to use to get our media to see us, but also to see our constituents and our county members to see the good news and the positive news in the county, and also to see communications. So I started day 2 of Hurricane Matthew because they didn't have any kind of social media platforms for the county. And they said, we need someone to be our spokesperson and also to run all our social media platforms. So I started day 2 of Hurricane Matthew, and I pushed out Instagram and Facebook on many users of our county that had never seen it before. So we had we did not have Instagram at that time, but we did have a social media page with Facebook, and we only had a couple, maybe 100 to 200 people on that page. And our page has grown to a lot. We have maybe 40 or 50,000 people or something like that on our page. We have about 80,000 views or plus. It just depends on whatever I post on there, whether it's COVID-19 vaccinations or I put up the announcement that you guys gave me for the NCDOT this week. So it just depends on the information that is given to me from different departments in the county, but also organizations outside of our county government that give me information, just like you guys gave me information to put out there going on the upgrades for the roads in North Carolina and in Robeson County. So social media has not only been a good thing, but sometimes it can be a bad thing. Just like I was telling them yesterday that in our little session that we had to make sure this technology works, that when I posted about the roads being changed in Robeson County, I got dings and notifications all night. And that's one thing our manager tells me, the county manager's like, you don't have to have your notifications on all the time, but I feel like that's my job. And a lot of times people were trying to be engineers and tell me they didn't want this or didn't want that. So I have to stay positive with that and just tell them that these are growths and improvements for Robeson County. So social media, I'm trying to change the slide. There it goes. But as you can see, these are just some examples of what I put on our Facebook page. With COVID-19, many things have changed and many people want to get the information out there very fast and effectively. And social media has been the only way we've been able to get that out there. We do have a website, and I've put the information on our website, but more constituents in our county and even outside our county use social media. I was working last week with the health department to try to get out some information with UNC Pembroke and us with Robeson County Health Department with the freezer that the university gave to us. So we pushed that out there, and so many people saw that article in the state of North Carolina. And when Wake County said they didn't have any vaccines, that same day I pushed something out there on social media that, you know, you could come and get your vaccine if you were 65 or older, and you didn't have to have an appointment, or you could have an appointment. So last Friday they were there, they called me, they said, Emily, I need you to come here and see some things. So I took pictures and did interviews of people. 90% of the people that were there last week at our health department were from Wake County, and they were just bragging about our nurses and the receptionists that were in the health department, just bragging about them. So we're trying right now to get a big story out there about how our health department has not only been great for Robeson County, but people coming into Robeson County to get their shot at our public health facility. So that's some good stories that go on in Robeson County. So sometimes you hear the bad things, but we do use social media for a great way to showcase what's going on in the county and how to get that information out there. So I just want to show you a little bit of statistics from December 30th to January 26th. This is just Facebook. This isn't our Instagram and our YouTube channel. But we reached 81,577 people on several of the posts. It was 4% down, but that was just due to the Christmas holidays, people not on social media as much during those times. But also strategically, we as a county are putting information out there at the times when we know our users are watching and who our users are. And that's on the next slide. We have noticed that most of our users that go on social media, not on the website, but so using our social media platforms, they have some type of mobile device. They're not using social media from their computer when they're looking at the county pages. They are using from either an iPad or some type of mobile device. And also, we know that those users are usually between the ages of 18 and all the way up till 70 some years old. So we don't have a big gap. We do have the younger generation, then we have the older generation that is following us on Instagram and Facebook. More users are having access to social media. We see a decline in people reading the newspaper. And also our local paper here does not print, but only a couple a week. So most of our users are actually watching our social media pages, and even news outlets are watching our social media pages. A lot of our feeds and a lot of our leads come from social media. So like yesterday, I had 4 reporters call me due to the article we had out there about the UNCP, them giving us a freezer for our vaccinations for our health department. So they saw the article that we wrote with the university, and I put it out on social media, and then I got all the phone calls. And also, when people see those good news, they follow us more. And so like the Robesonian, I've talked to them daily on a daily basis because they follow us too on social media. Also, we see there's a faster connection between what I can put out there compared to put it on a website. Most of the times I put it on social media first because it's something that's very important. Like during hurricanes, I could put out 100 and some posts a day, and it's faster for me to put it on social media than it is for our website. So it's just that we see that that information is not only pertinent at that time, but we need to put it out there so that people understand that things can change and move around, especially during hurricane and with COVID-19 with this vaccination rollout. Also sharing images. I have many people that follow our pages that share the images with organizations. Not only it could be the Burnt Swamp Association, it could be the hospital. So I stay in collaboration with all the public information officers for our larger organizations in North Carolina and in Robeson County. So I disseminate that information to them, or they give me information I post on our social media pages, since we do have a lot of followers. How we can update the social media platforms seem like faster than we can give it to the media, because like I said earlier, they do follow us. So I really don't have to send it out to them unless it's an important press release or something that we need to get out there that haven't put on social media or website. But most of the time, all the news outlets do follow us. As of Hurricane Matthew, when that happened, it seems like we were put on the map. So they do follow us, whether it's national news or just our local news here in Robeson County. In Robeson County, we use 2 platforms. We are using Instagram and Facebook, and we use YouTube for our videos and Instagram for our videos, but we are not using TikTok as much. Well, we're not using that one at all because we haven't moved to that platform quite yet. I don't know if I can get some of the people to want to switch to TikTok, but Facebook has been more, a lot of people see it more. The older generation are going to more of a Facebook, and our younger generation is on Instagram, but I use those 2 platforms at the same time. I've been doing social media for a long time, even before it became popular. I was teaching it at a community college when I lived in New Bern at Craven Community College. So social media not only has gained trust with everybody, but also more people are sharing it, and it's more accurate news. The only time I've ever seen social media become a hindrance is with Hurricane Florence. We had some issues with some organizations that were giving out false information, and also taking our information and changing it to an article to make it look bad so that they could gain money and profit off of that story. So that's the only time that we've ever seen issues with social media where it became a hindrance to our constituents in our county, and people using images for profit for them to gain, and they're not even from this community. So that's, I know it's short and sweet, but I wanted to talk to you today just about how effective social media has been in our county. And I have shared anytime I get any information from the group from North Carolina DOT, I share all information, whether it's roads or the weather or things, upgrades that are going to change here in our county. I always share those, not only with our social media pages, but I send them out to constituents that I know that can share that information in their organization too, with our public schools, with our tribe. That's another 2 large organizations. I also share a lot of media information too also.
Hey, Emily, this is Andrew Barksdale.
Are you there?
Yeah, this is Andrew Barksdale. Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for that presentation. I wanted to let folks know that earlier in this meeting, we asked for your comments after each speaker, but we did not have the master control set up correctly. And I believe I fixed that now. I think for attendees, for attendees and participants, you should be able to turn on your mics. I think Mark Isbell had. Mark, are you there? Can you turn on your mic? Is it working now?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Mark. And let me just reiterate. When we had some different speakers, Brady said, "Are there any questions?" And people weren't able to turn on their mics, so we're sorry about that. So feel free to have time. And I don't know, Cheryl, was Emily the last presenter?
Emily is the last speaker, and Andrew, you're kind of cutting in and cutting out with your.
I'll let you take over, Brady, then, because I think some people might have had comments earlier, and I'll let you kind of handle that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so apparently we had a glitch after each speaker, and no one was able to ask questions, share comments, and that kind of thing. So we've got a little bit of time. We've got about 20 minutes before we're supposed to actually end. So thanks, Emily. Thanks, Nick, for your presentation. And I was actually muted myself, so I had a little glitch too, couldn't speak. So anyone have any questions of either Brian, Matt, and Mary Jane, Crystal, Nick, or Emily? Just open it up for questions.
Grady, this is Mark Ezel. Thanks for these presentations. They've all been great, and I have learned a lot. I do have a question. I don't know if Mary Jane's still on the call, but if she or Matt are on the call, I love the presentation on the DWI task force. That is so good. And first of all, I hope it's okay, Mary Jane, if we brag a lot about you to some of the national folks that we work with and some other people across the state, because y'all are doing incredible work. But my question is about treatment. You mentioned in-person treatment and inpatient treatment. Do you also have outpatient alternatives that you've worked with BART or with other folks in treatment to offer some of the participants?
Absolutely. So inpatient, sorry, that's my phone. Inpatient treatment is usually for our most severe cases, and usually earlier on in the treatment process. Usually that includes detox, and then followed by a 90-day inpatient treatment. So that means it's a residential treatment. But a lot of our participants, we usually start people off trying to see how they do with outpatient. If they have a cont versus SAOP, now I'm not a treatment expert, so I'm going to tell you what I've learned so far, but there's a difference between cont and SAOP. One is more intense than the other. One requires 5 days a week session, so 5 days of the week you go or tune into a counseling session with a treatment provider, a counselor, or in a group setting kind of treatment session. And the other one requires 3 to 4 days a week. So that's what most of our participants are in. Again, inpatients usually for people who have more severe cases or just kind of need a detox and a clean start. Also, people for our participants who need to be removed from certain situations for a while. Treatment's all about people, places, and things. And so sometimes if you get people out of what they're used to, they can make those first adjustments and figure out how to survive without those influences, and then we can put them back in where they're used to, and they've already got the skills they need to kind of to adjust and face those regular influences that they're used to. But we always encourage them not to get to those same situations. So yes, there's inpatient and an outpatient. Most are outpatient treatment options. With BART, BART actually has, he's in charge of Robeson Healthcare. They have a men's recovery, which is a 9-day program. They have a detox facility, which is usually about a 7 to 10-day program. But they also have outpatient options as well as their telehealth options.
That's great. Thank you.
Hey, Mary Jane, how many participants do you have in the program? I know 3 are going to graduate or do celebrate recovery. This is Jessica Horn from the Robesonia, by the way.
Oh, hi, Jessica. Yes, currently we have, I think it's 10 or 11 in the program. 3 will be graduating mid-April. And we're trying to get more people in, but the way COVID happened, as well as we had a coordinator who got another position at a treatment facility, we're trying to, we were introducing people into the program as long as they understood what was going on and had a basic need of having treatment. We kind of ran into a snag about that because often what people understand versus what's actually required is 2 different worlds. And so we usually have, we want our court coordinator to meet with them, do an assessment, and really discuss with them what the program's about, actually give them a real idea of what's required, because it's not easy to kick an addiction. It's not at all. Plus, coming to court sessions and possibly being sanctioned for not doing what you're supposed to do. It's added responsibility that not a lot of people that have these problems are ready to take on yet. And so we had a court coordinator meeting with them, really talking with them, and she was trained in treatment. She was a treatment provider as well. So she was really good at getting to the root of the problem. Since after she left 3 or 4 months ago, kind of put a halt on adding new people into the program because we wanted to make sure we get quality candidates. And one of the ways we do that is having a good court coordinator. So we don't want to put anybody in the program that's going to fail, because it's a waste of resources, and we wasted their time and kind of put a bad taste in their mouth as to what treatment can do, and that's not going to help anybody in the long run. So we put a halt on adding participants. We want to get up to 25. I know on my end, I've talked with 4 different attorneys about 4 different individuals who are likely good candidates. We just need to get a coordinator and assessments and get the ball rolling. And hopefully, once things open back up, we can get them the treatment they need.
Thank you. I have one more question. Are they also doing telehealth? You mentioned something about iPads. Are they involved in that as well?
Yes, anyone, whenever you get in the program, you can choose your treatment provider as long as you're making progress and they're communicating with us what kind of progress you're making. Our main treatment provider, because they are right here in the county and do have resources, well, at the time, resources to get people to and from treatment was Robeson Healthcare. They are doing telehealth services because they're trying to limit the number of people who aren't inpatient from coming outside and exposing people who are inpatient as well as their employees. So yeah, they have given their clients tablets. I don't know if they're iPads or what brand, but tablets and hotspot devices, so that way they can come to their 3 to 5 day a week sessions, as well as anything, any extra counseling that they need.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? If the panelists would all come back on, turn your cameras on if you would, please. Just want to thank everybody for participating. And again, I know we had some technical hiccups. So one last time before we close everything out, if anyone has a question, go ahead and ask away.
Hey, Grady, this is Blake King up at
Good
DOT.
morning, Blake.
Good morning. I wanted to ask Ms. Collins, the reduction in the crashes for the larger trucks was pretty substantial. Do you attribute that to lots of really good training for your drivers and a combination of new blind spot indicators and help from artificial intelligence and newer equipment?
Yes, we're seeing more of our trucking companies installing the forward-facing and the in-cab cameras, the blind spots. Yes, the lane controls. We have cameras there as well. Also, 2019 was quite a unique year in the sense when everybody was at stay-at-home. There were trucks on the road, but less vehicles, passenger vehicles. So that attributes to it as well. But yes, our industry is focused on becoming safer every year with the technology, as I spoke to earlier about the billions of dollars that we're investing. It's just critical to the trucking industry. It keeps our costs down, operating costs, when we are, looking at safety measures as well. And of course, it's protecting the motoring public and our drivers.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Grady, this is Mark Ezel again. This is for Reverend McNeil. Reverend, thanks for your talk and your presentation. That was really good and really thought-provoking. We really need to message the Vision Zero effort as being about keeping our families safe and about keeping our communities safe. And it's about 1 Corinthians chapter 6 talks about the body's a temple. So we need to get that message across as well. You got any particular ideas about how we can message this around the family and community, the need to keep us all safe and whole?
I don't know if we lost Nick or not. Nick, can you hear?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. It's technical difficulties, but yes, sir. A lot of times our parishioners just don't see the correlation to safe driving and their Christian walk and being good to their fellow man. If we could somehow tie that into a lesson or some kind of message or curriculum, that would be very beneficial to our people. It comes down to our pastors being able to do that. Some of our pastors are bivocation. Many of our pastors in the Burnt Swamp are bivocation, and they may need some help with that. So if we could get some preachers, pastors, youth pastors also. I did some research, and our county is one of the youngest counties there is. 30% of our population is below the age of 19. So I think young drivers and just people not understanding that their driving behavior ties right in with the life that they live. And our pastors may need some help tying that in. And so if we could get some guys, get some folk together to have a curriculum and say, listen, this is where it comes from in the scripture. This is how you tie it in. I think pastors would be more than willing to help their parishioners see that, because it'll cut down on the funerals. It'll cut down on the visitations we have to do and the hurt for our family and friends here at church.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Nick. Again, I'd like to thank Brian, Matt, Mary Jane, Nick, Emily, Crystal. Thank you for your presentations. Thank you for being part of our Vision Zero. Our next meeting is going to be March 25th, and I'm assuming right now it's going to be virtually also. So look forward to seeing all of you then. Until then, stay safe and see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.